Okay, so what I felt, it's written, nobody can go back and start a new beginning, but anybody can start today and make a new ending. So we learned from Dr. Lena there is a conscious mind, subconscious mind. When trauma or unexpected or unpleasant event happens, it goes in our subconscious mind. We cannot go back in time, but certainly, we can learn the techniques to manage our thoughts. And she shared a wonderful technique last week. Be your own detective, learn the art of watching your own thoughts, and then write it down. Make two columns, right? So that was very powerful technique. I do that often when I need to make decisions. So it gives me clarity, and I own my decisions, good or bad. I make that choice. So I always say, whatever needs to happen, happen. Whatever has happened, happened, right? So future, we say that, past is history and present is your gift, right? And your future is based on your present. So it's never late. So with that, I would request Dr. Lena to share for future slides, and we would do at the end that gratitude together.
Unmute myself.
Yep, we can hear you fine, Dr. Lena.
Okay. Thank you very much, Poonam. So I'm going to just pull up the slides. Just 1 second here. Um, can you see the slide?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, that's weird. I'm not seeing PowerPoint option here today.
So you need to go on the third icon, which is share content.
Yeah, I went into that, but I'm not seeing my. Oh, there it is. Okay, now I found it.
Okay.
Okay. And now you can see the slide?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us again today. I do remember I have to answer one question from last time. Last time when we were almost running out of time, I think there was a question about what's emotional intelligence. I'll take a quick minute to answer that before I move forward into the presentation on our thought management series. So emotional intelligence, can be, I can take a whole hour to talk about it, but briefly, it is an ability to build self-awareness and motivation to develop empathy and social skills to be able to work with others. So, basically, once I build that self-awareness and I am able to not only be in touch with my emotions, but I'm able to put myself in other person's shoes and show that empathy and look at the situation from their perspective, that can really give me, an upper hand. And there's been so much research that if a person has great IQ but they lack EQ, they can't be a good team player. So that self-awareness, empathy, having appropriate social skills to look into the positive and find a way to work with others, to find a way to manage your own self, and feel motivated to achieve your goal. So those things kind of come together under this umbrella of emotional intelligence. So we could certainly talk more about that if there is enough interest on this particular topic later, but I wanted to make sure I at least gave a little bit of a perspective on what EQ or emotional quotient or emotional intelligence is. So, we were talking about strategies to dispute negative thoughts last week. So I'm going to continue from that point on. Last week, we talked about a technique called as detective thinking, where we become detectives our own thoughts and really start to question how much should I really believe in this thought and how much I shouldn't. And we do that by looking for an evidence that supports the thought and that goes against the thought. So let's see, somebody annotation request. Okay, so so what I was going over was that the detective thinking technique can be pretty effective, where you basically put the thought, what if I lose my job, was one of the examples I was talking about, and then you make two columns. What's the evidence that supports this thought, and what's the evidence that goes against this thought? And so, so basically by doing that, a lot of the times you actually see that the number of points you come up with more than likely happens to be higher in the evidence against column. And that really helps you to really look back at the original thought and say, is there really like that much belief I should have in this thought? Because, there's seeming like it's the probability of whatever I'm thinking is not really 100%. It's much lower than I was anticipating. And that allows you to move past that thought. So today's technique is to find a challenge to refute or dispute your pattern of thinking and your basically cognitive distortion. So what I'm also going to do is I'm going to pull up the handout on cognitive distortion that some of you got in the email. So let me actually, because I think it would be really good to go in that order for a little bit more, in detail for us to understand what cognitive distortions are. And there we go. Okay, now everybody can see this one?
Yes, Dr. Leena.
Yeah, okay. So, I will like to go over some of these, and then we will go back to the slide where we were going to learn about some techniques or some ways to challenge these distortions. So the first one up here is mind reading. And the brief description is you assume that you know what people think without having sufficient evidence of their thoughts. For example, he thinks I am a loser. So, let me actually take a pause here and ask, how many of you feel like you do this in your day-to-day life? I am raising my hand already, but let's see how many of you feel like this.
So everybody, we do have facility in WebEx where you can hover over your name and you can raise your hand. So please do raise your hand if you do this in your everyday today. So Dr. Leena, you may be able to see people are raising hands. I just see, I think, one.
Okay.
Others may not be able to know how to do it, but I certainly know I do it.
I'm unable to find that option. How can we raise that hand? Yeah, I found it. Yeah.
Good. So if you hover over your name, you
Yeah, I
should
found
be
it.
able to see. Good. Yep.
So, I mean, this is
Yep,
just
more
one.
hands are coming up.
Yep.
So yeah, it will be great to discuss this. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, it may not be the exact same example or same sentence like he thinks I am a loser. It could be she thinks I am no good, or it could be she thinks I am ugly. It could be they think I am not smart, whatever, that might be. And, so what happens is, until I myself started to learn CBT, and I was like, oh, there is like a whole list of different distorted patterns of thinking that they have done, come up with based on research, and they've come up with labels for that. Is was like I was really like wowed by this. I was like, oh my gosh, I do so many of these all the time. But then, the purpose behind, again, understanding the distortions in your thinking, or the thinking trap, as we call it, as an alternative word, is that, only when I understand what I am thinking is not right, is when I'm going to make effort to correct my thought. And we know why we need to correct our thought, because we've understood that there is a cascade that follows my thought. The thought drives my feelings, feelings drive my action or my behavior, and that repeatedly can become a habit or attitude, and then over time can become a pattern of living or my destiny. So, um, when I started going through this list, I was like, yeah, I do this. But then the advantage of, understanding this is that next time I'm doing it, next time I am sitting next to my colleague and I'm already, reading their mind and saying, she thinks I am, not smart. I need to catch myself there, and then I need to uh, find a way to challenge that, and ask my ask myself, can we really know what others are thinking? The reality is that majority of the times people are actually more focused on their own problems, their own life, their own thinking. They really don't, have time for thinking about these types of things about others. So I don't have any evidence. It's all creation or my perception, of, maybe I have looked at their body language, or some incident might have happened and I have interpreted in a wrong way that that's what they think, and I feel like that's what is true. The reality is that I don't have evidence for that, so I need to remind myself that, not something that's true. I'm doing mind reading now. So the moment I label my thought, it gives me a perspective on, oh, I need to stop thinking about this way. I need to find a different way to think about it, or I need to let it go. Okay. Then, in the list comes fortune telling. So you predict the future, that things will get worse, or that there is danger ahead. For example, I won't get that job, or I will fail that exam. And again, this is something we often do as well. In our own mind, we think that, oh, I'm not doing well right now studying for this exam. This will be more relevant for kids, maybe. Or I'm not doing well on this project and I'm going to lose the job, or my future is just not good. And so, we often predict without, having sufficient evidence. And so again, when I find myself doing that, I need to catch myself and I say, hey, I'm doing fortune telling right now. So when I label it, it gives me the power to challenge that thought. And we'll come back to the slides again, but basically, a challenge for this will be, I need to question, can I really predict the future? What would it be like to find out how it is really than just imagine it? Like reminding yourself that I'm imagining it right now, it's my creation, than actually it's happening. So that's what, allows me to challenge that thought. Once I label it, it gives me the power to challenge it. And when I challenge it, I'm able to ignore that thought or find a way to kind of deal with it better. The next one on this list is catastrophizing. You believe that what has happened or will happen will be so awful and unbearable that you won't be able to stand it. For example, it would be terrible if I failed, or it would be terrible if I lose my job. So again, let's see a show of hands. How many of us find ourselves doing this? And I think the current situation is such that I'm sure we are all finding ourselves doing the catastrophic thinking. So Poonam, I'm not able to see all the show of hands, but maybe you could tell me, since I have the big screen up here with the handout.
Yeah, there are 4 to 5 hands, Lina.
Okay. So, given current time of being, sheltered in and in the state of where the world is, and how we are all feeling worried about economy going down and losing our jobs, or what else is going to go wrong. I think, a lot of the times situations do, also bring up that kind of thinking. Often there is also, not just situations, but often we may have that tendency to think about the worst possible thing that could happen. And so, if the situation is such, yes, if this is what everybody is going through, I guess that's what I will have to face as well, is one way to to refute that. But before I do that, I think if I can take a moment and I say, oh, it would be terrible if I lose my job, it will be terrible if I don't get another job. I need to catch myself, and I need to tell myself I'm doing catastrophic thinking right now. Let me take a pause and think about how likely this is, and then, okay, it looks like it may happen. Okay, so if it were to happen, how am I going to deal with that? What can I do today to start preparing for that worst case scenario? Or, why do I lose my current moment of peace and comfort worrying about something that's not quite happened yet? Could be another way to challenge that. Because what happens is, when we worry, the worry actually takes our present moment from us. It takes us, into this imaginary future that we don't know really is going to happen or not. And in that process, we also lose the pleasure and the comfort and the joy of the present moment. And that's why I need to recognize these, cognitive distortions or these thinking traps, and learn to be in the moment and say, okay, today I have my job. Today, I was able to, be productive, and I did my best to get my work done. And so tomorrow is another day, and, I will deal with it when it comes. So, these types of distortions, certainly come up when we are facing adverse times and adverse situations. But I still have a choice if I want to focus on that, or if I want to focus on, something else I can do in the moment to make it better. Then the next one here is labeling. You assign global negative traits to yourself and others. For example, I am undesirable, I am unlovable, I am stupid, or I am not smart, I am dumb. There can be very many ways we label ourselves, and then, start believing in that. And, the problem with this distortion is that the more I do this, the more I lose my confidence in myself. And I start, losing my value in my own eyes. I start losing my self-esteem. So, if I have this tendency, I should catch myself and say, hey, I'm doing labeling right now. Let me see what's the evidence for that. for it to be true, or it's just my own perception of me. That other two, the next two in the list are, I think, also very relevant, that we, do a lot. We do often have the tendency to discount the positives. So in this particular example is more kind of specific to, more specific to accomplishments, but this could be also, something we can extend to other parts of our lives. So here, the particular example they gave to explain this is, you claim that the positive accomplishments you or others attain are trivial. And, for example, those successes were easy, so they don't matter, or so what, so I was supposed to do it, most people do it, so big deal. But, in other contexts, discounting positives can also happen in, other day-to-day lives. And I mean, current situation, we can discount positives that we need to be grateful for, that, oh, I am sheltered in, it's really awful, but guess what? I still have a roof on my head. I'm able to work from my home. I have technology to connect with people. I am blessed to have good meals. I'm blessed to have good health. And so, a lot of the times we end up, discounting positives, and we look for what's not going right and what's going right. And so, catching ourselves even doing that can be very powerful way to, divert those negative feelings that follow those types of thinking patterns. So, Poonam, I'm looking at the clock. I want to be mindful and not run over. So it's 8:55. Would you like me to pause here and then we open up for questions and then end on time at 9?
Yes, Dr. That will be helpful. I wanted to ask you one question.
Yeah.
So I do see my child using label on himself quite often. So I do remind him, but I don't know other than that what can else I do.
Yeah, so I think, identifying the distortion in thinking is the first step. Like I was saying, that unless I know what's wrong, I will not correct how it should be, or how it what needs to be corrected. So once you are saying, beta, I see this kind of tendency that you have. You label yourself based on one small experience, or not even sometimes experience. So once you're identifying the distortion, then I think it's important to sit and say why this is not helpful, and how does this impact me, and why do I need to change this. So once I say, this by doing this, I'm actually ruining my own self-esteem, my ability to feel confident and present confidently. So, what do I want? I want to be able to, be a confident person. I want to be able to, use my strengths to show what I know. So if that's my goal, how is this tendency or this thinking pattern helping me? And so you kind of do this pros and cons kind of analysis, that, what's the pro for keeping, this thinking pattern, and what's the con, and what's the, and what to change this or keep it. And then, you sometimes for kids, I say, you just leave them with the information. Just tell them, okay, why don't you make a list of pros and cons of thinking this way? And then have them do the introspection and reflection, and they may understand it, and you don't need to really actually go too much in detail, because they will find out once they put it down on the piece of paper.
Sure, Dr. Lina, that's helpful. I do see Alok has raised hand. Do you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Lina, for share all the information. I have a one question here.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the thing is, I'm not labeling myself any of these things, the
Mm-hmm.
negative, but I'm very lazy about to think about the to think or to do anything. So, is there maybe any kind of distortion I'm feeling? That's why I'm going so lazy these days.
Okay, let me understand your question. So you're saying you are you don't I recognize any of the distortions listed on this, but what? Sorry,
Yes,
but what? That
but I'm very lazy to do any of thing.
okay. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
so okay, good question. You know, laziness is considered more of a behavioral choice or preference than a thought pattern as such.
Mm-hmm.
So so if some people like to relax and laze around and have like that kind of lifestyle, and some people are on the go and they cannot sit in one place and they're constantly doing things. So we all have different kind of personalities and preferences. But if you are feeling bothered by this particular behavior, that you feel like I don't quite like what I do, I'm not happy with how I'm choosing to do this all the time or whatnot, then I think you have the power to change that. So for changing anything, first, if we recognize that that's not a helpful thing anymore, that's not working in my favor, it's working against me,
Mm-hmm.
then that empowers you to bring a change. And you can then maybe come up with a action plan of like, okay, what am I going to do? Maybe I'll start with small steps. I'll do two things today. While I'm lazing around, I'm going to get up and whatever, think about a task. I'm going to do two things, and I'm going to break that pattern and see if I'm successful. So even starting small
Mm-hmm.
and getting one or the two things you had a goal for accomplished, then giving yourself a pat on the back, and next day saying, okay, I'm going to do four things today and then six things tomorrow, and so forth. So so I think it's certainly something, we can get into comfortable behavioral patterns in our own comfort zones. And currently, with being sheltered in and not much of movement around, I think we all are probably feeling more lazy. We are losing some of our motivation to do different things because there's very few options out there to do. So even the situation might be attributing to it, but if you take charge and you say, I don't like this, I want to change it, then you can actually work towards that.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
So, Dr. Lina, we should stop hour. So I will quickly, you already shared a lot of things to be grateful for. So I'm just going to share a quick list here, and I'm sure all of you can relate with it. Coffee in the morning, playlist on my phone, friends around me, families that love me, soothing breeze, sunshine and moonlight, a healthy body, a good book, a warm bed. So many things to be grateful for. So let's take a minute and end it with our positive meditation, and call it a day. Taking just a minute, I sit quietly, still. I begin to see how the habits of getting stuck in negativity have derailed my mind into fear and anger. Now, in this moment of quiet concentration, I decide to transform every negativity into a positive opportunity to create betterment. In this quietness of mind, I feel free, light. I become confident. Now I step out into my day, observing and interacting with new clarity and positivity. As we were saying, always start your day with a positive thought. Alok just shared a positive thought with us. Even the commentary I was playing, you can start your day with that. Feel energized. And as I said, after every hour, just take a moment and remind yourself that you are peaceful, you are loveful, you are powerful, and see the power of your own thoughts. And end your day with gratitude and be thankful for all the things we have. So, with that, thank you very much, everybody. Talk to you tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Puna.